cat in the wall, eh? Okay, now you're talking my language.
You have a drunk Bailey's from a shoe?
All right, welcome into week 3 of the View from C Deck college football picks. I'm Just Matt here with Dyerwolf. We're hitting 66% apiece right now through 3 weeks, so 10-5. We each pick 5 picks, our 5 most confident games of the week. Sometimes we have some overlap, but we try not to, and we try to hit all the big games. But if you couldn't notice, this is a Buckeye-centric podcast, so we always start with the Buckeyes, and they are 39.5-point favorites. Is that where we're at right now? Coming in Saturday. Not one of my picks for the week, so I'll let you start out with the Buckeyes, though, against Marshall. Big noon kickoff, so it is a big game, boys.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not going to actually bet money on this one, but I always pick our game when I've done these podcasts, and since we've started doing them, I have a pretty crazy high percentage, so I'm not straying away from my strategy. 39.5, I mean, I honestly think we shut them out. Otherwise, I would have bet the over. That over-under number makes me a little nervous. So I'm thinking, if we shut them out, that's only 6 touchdowns, which should be very reasonable. So that's why it's all about that shutout, which I think shutouts, like I said in the previous one, there's a little bit of luck involved, but I think they can do it. This defense is so stacked. They're going to put in the backups, and they're still going to dominate. So I think we cover 39.5.
Yeah, I think we cover too, but it's a matter of how we come out. It's all about Ohio State in this game. If they play a B+ game, they're covering this. If they be a B- to C+ game, then which they could coming out of the bye, then it could be closer than we would hope for. It could be like 38-3 or something dumb like that instead. But I like the Buckeyes to cover, and I like the over because I picked that like every game this year. And so far, we're 2-2, so whatever. All right, the biggest game, though, in the Big Ten this week, Illinois and Nebraska, an old Big Ten West matchup, kind of. But the Cornhuskers, both teams surprisingly 3-0. Maybe not too surprising with Nebraska, but Illinois definitely surprising. And they're getting 8.5. It's up to 9 now on DraftKings, actually, which is what we use for our lines. So moving away from the direction both of us picked, which is Illinois with the 8.5. I'll give us the 9, though, since it's there now. Give us extra half point. Vegas may not be agreeing with us, but I just think it's too many points. Nebraska is not that proven. I mean, they've dominated defensively so far this year, but this is Colorado's offense is good, but very one-dimensional and can fall apart easily. Illinois is a little better with Burt, of course, and they have a good defense too. They've also played a pretty good Kansas team and beat them. Although, actually, I think Kansas lost again this week, didn't they?
I'm not sure about Kansas. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the shine's worn off them a bit. But either way, I think they're tough enough to keep it close. Maybe they lose. I'll take them to lose to Cornhuskers, but they'll keep it within the 9.
Yeah, I thought the number seemed suspiciously high. So now that you're talking about it, almost
means
seems
go to
like
Nebraska, yeah.
but not quite, though. I think Rayola's getting a lot of hype, which he's good for sure. He's a freshman. But Illinois, I think they're legit too. Like, I think they keep this within a touchdown for sure. But I'll say you're wrong on the best game of the Big Ten this weekend, though.
Which one's that? Which one do you think it is?
Scum.
Oh, yeah. Duh. How did I forget that? Well, USC, they threw me off there. Still not used to them being the Big Ten. Okay. The other noon games, though, to go head-to-head with our big noon matchup, you probably want to watch Ohio State Marshall over Tennessee, Oklahoma. Maybe not. Tennessee, who just put one of the biggest beatdowns I've ever seen on Kent State. They were up 65-0 at halftime. They have won by an average of 59.3, repeating, of course, points per game this year. And now they go to Boomer Sooner, who has struggled at times with not P5 teams. Well, I guess they are now because Houston's in the Big 12 or whatever. But struggled again last week with Tulane. Jumped out early. Only a 7.5-point spread. Now, if you look at their rankings and the fact that it's on the road, that's not too weird. But to me, this is ballsy pick territory. For Oklahoma, it would be, but I just think they're wrong. I think they're doing it because of where it's at. So I'm not trying to overthink this one. Tennessee has looked amazing. Oklahoma has not. I'll take Tennessee minus 7.5. I'll lay the points. Over under 58.
Yeah, after we were talking about this one before, I think I'm actually going to bet money on this one because I think I'm with you. That Tennessee game actually decided the results of a pick'em league I'm in, and I had Tennessee because it was like 49.5 or something like that, and they just every time I look at my phone, I swear like 2 minutes later it'd be another touchdown. I don't even know what happened, but they
play a really high pace. They play a really high pace. Is what happened.
So that number, I mean, that could get out of hand quick, and that number's could be easily covered after it could be halftime, and they could be up 17 points. Who knows?
7.5 is nothing to cover. It's like I said, it almost seems like. But if you look at they're on the road at a top 15 or top 20 team. I don't remember where Oklahoma is now, but I just don't like. I don't think either of them played particularly great schedule, and Oklahoma looks way worse. The other big game at noon that's ranked, Big 12 game, which could have a huge effect on who plays in their conference championship game. Utah and Oklahoma State. Utah getting 3 on the road at Oklahoma State here, over under 51.5. I picked this one. I picked Oklahoma State minus 2.5 at the time, so I'm going to keep that for me because it's minus 3 now. So moving in my direction on this one. So Vegas is right this time, unlike the the Illinois game. But yeah, I'll take them to cover. I just don't think Utah's is Rising going to play. He didn't play last week. Their quarterback didn't play bad, but their defense didn't play great either against the Utah State team that's not that good, and got shut out by USC. So on the road here, they haven't always traveled that well, even with all the success they've had with Willingham. They haven't won a lot of big road games like this. So I'll go ahead and take Oklahoma State to win and cover the 2.5.
I'm with you on that one. I was wrong about I didn't pick Utah last week, but I thought their defense would absolutely dominate Utah State because I bet the under on it, and it wasn't even close. There was points galore in that game. So I could see Oak State putting up some numbers in this one.
Yeah. Okay, another noon game that you picked on this one, and the line I think is moving towards your direction here. Clemson against NC State, an NC State team that, if you play the video game, is amazing. First couple of years here with all these transfers. Fortunately, real life isn't like that, and transfers don't always just like coalesce and mold together. So they have struggled this year, even though they're still 2-1. They got blown out by Tennessee at home. On the road at Clemson, who got blown out, then had a blowout, and then come a bye. But this game's been close in the past, and I think that's why you went with NC State. Actually, it's going against you now because it was 16.5 when you picked it, and now it's 17.
Okay. Yeah, that's why. I mean, I think they might even beat them one year, but they've been real close, maybe 3 times, and that number's pretty big. 2 touchdowns, I'm good. So not a whole lot about this one. I don't really know what to think about Clemson, to be honest with you. They looked absolutely terrible against Georgia. They come back, like you said, then look dominant. So I think, NC State could be a legitimate threat to them a little bit just because of the past. They're not going to lose the game, but I could see them keeping it competitive because that number seemed a little bit high to me.
It does seem a little bit high, but that's usually means they think it's going to be a blow your doors off. And they did it against an App State team that I think is okay, but they actually struggled last week with in a conference game. But I'll take Clemson to cover. I think they're better than that Georgia game led on, and their offense can't score enough. And I think NC State's offense just can't quite seem to get it together yet, and their defense isn't that great either. I don't think they're that good. So I'll lay the 17. I think I'll get Dabo one thing. They keep losing all these early season games the last few years, but he never lets it completely fall off the rocker. They always come back a little bit, and I think they're talented enough. I picked them to go to the playoff preseason, and I don't feel like coming off that yet. All right, now to the biggest game in the Big Ten, as you correctly said, and keeping the eye on the enemy, Scum getting 5.5 at home against USC, which seems nuts. Casey, I'll let you start. We both picked this, and we picked opposite sides. Where do you think happens when the Trojans march in as a Big Ten team to the Big House for the first time?
So before last weekend, USC seemed like our biggest threat to the Big Ten, honestly, because Oregon had looked like trash. But Oregon looked dominant last week. So maybe it's back to Oregon, but Scum just has not looked good 1 week yet at all, period. Their offense is atrocious. The only thing they can do is run the ball, and they can't even do that well. USC, for the first time in I don't know how long, seems to actually have a legitimate defense. So that number, I mean, it is kind of suspiciously low, but I could see USC blowing their doors off. The only thing that concerns me is this is their season. They already got embarrassed. If they get embarrassed again, the wheels are going to fall off. They're going to go 500. So maybe those players come together and, fight it till the end and keep it respectable. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. I see it happening, unfortunately. Not that I necessarily think they win, but I'll take the 5.5. It's in that weird Vegas line too. 5.5 usually means they're not really sure what's going to happen in a game. Although with it being at home, it's more like I guess that'd be like an 8.5 point spread. So I think USC is going to whoop them.
Yeah.
But where I'm at with it, I picked Scum because of the running games. So USC has actually leaned on the running game a lot, especially in the goal line situations. They move the ball a lot. Like they're definitely moving the ball passing, but they're scoring running. They've only thrown 2 touchdown passes this year. I think that Michigan's run D is still very good. They didn't work great against Texas, but Texas has the best offensive line in the country probably. USC does not. They have a better O-line and a better running game than they've had in the past, but I don't know if it's that good. I don't know if they're going to be able to score a lot of touchdowns is my point. So I think Michigan, they've turned it over a ton, and this is why these games keep being close or they're getting blown out. They're losing the turnover battle 3-0 the last 2 weeks. They've lost the turnover battle 3-0. I don't know if that happens I don't think you can bank on that to happen. So I think they just keep it closer because I don't think they turn it over. I think they're going to turn more towards orgy because they did in the game against Arkansas State, which is what I envisioned in the preseason when I thought they would keep it closer with Texas and maybe even make a run at the playoff. And I would say, just run the ball. Just run. Don't even worry about passing. Just run the ball and just let your defense and be Wisconsin from like the past 25 years. Maybe they're going to actually lean towards that now. So I think they keep it close enough here. Maybe they lose, maybe they don't, but I'll take the 5.5. I'm with you. They could just stink, and they could play Warren out there and throw 3 more picks. Who knows? All right. A game that you probably stayed away from after getting snake bit last week hard and one of your only losses with Notre Dame, hosted Miami, Ohio. And I got snake bit in a real bet by Miami, Ohio last week because I thought they weren't that bad, and they were getting 3.5 at home against a UC team who just had a heartbreaking loss where they blew a 21-point lead in the second half against Pitt. Not even close, though. They only lost by 11, but it wasn't really that close. So they go to Notre Dame, who just wrecked Purdue. So now we have this, who the heck is Notre Dame? They look very Jekyll and Hyde. I think they stay, though, rolling against a bad Miami team this week. I think the NIU game may have just totally woken them up. So I'll take them to cover the 27 against a bad team. I had 26.5, though, too, on my bet. So I'm taking that.
I didn't look at that one because they pissed me off so much. But that is a weird number because it's just under 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, they beat Purdue by how much? 35 or something?
59, 66-7.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, that's a good pick. I didn't even look at it, but
All right. Now moving on to the Dyerwolf delight of the week. This may be your new team this year. Last year it was the under on the Iowa games. This year, Butgers is your team, and it's paid off handsomely so far. Getting 4.5 now, so you're getting an extra point on the road. Vegas is not agreeing with you. At Virginia Tech, though, who we just said lost at home straight up to Vanderbilt. Now it was an overtime game, but still lost straight up to Vanderbilt at home. You like getting the points there?
I do. And they didn't necessarily destroy Marshall either. I mean, they beat him pretty good, but it was like 20 points or something.
17.
Yeah, it wasn't. absolutely blowing their doors off or anything like that. And like I've said before with other teams, I mean, I jokingly say they could make the playoffs, but this is one of those games. They win this one, their schedule is so easy that they could finish the season like 10-2 and be like, hey, maybe we have a chance. But they lose this game, then that's completely out of the question. So I actually think they win this one outright. I think they're a sneakily good team. Nothing that's going to threaten anybody, but they're going to win some games this year.
Yeah. No other games we picked. There's some interesting games at night with playoff worthy teams maybe that play like weird road games against teams Kansas State plays at BYU at 10:30 at night, coming off a big game against Arizona last week where they dominated and made me feel very good about my pick for them to win the Big 12. But I think that's a tricky one there, and they're 7.5 point favorites right now. I might go BYU on that. And like Miami plays at South Florida, the Bama Killers. That's a weird game to be playing away at. But they have been just wrecking people too, so I wouldn't worry too much. I think they'd cover that one. But so overall, look though at the playoff landscape. I think after next week we can do a reset on who we think actually makes it. But anything changing with you? I like a lot of my picks are looking good. Besides LSU now, I don't think they're going to make it, even though they are still alive. I'd say. I think Tennessee just takes their spot now. Tennessee looks. They only really, if they get past Oklahoma this week, they got Bama and Georgia. One at Georgia, home against Bama. That though, they should be all wins. They should be at worst 10-2, and they're probably in just because of how bad they've been crushing teams.
I'll say not a whole lot I could say about my predictions, but AP poll, 16 of the top 25 were Big Ten or SEC. So I'm wondering if it's
all 9.
If it's a real possibility, we get 9 of those two conferences. And it's going to be –
people will hate it. I don't think they will. Just people will hate it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's all going to come down to those 2 lost teams. But I really think any team that if you the goal should be get to the halfway point undefeated. If you're 6-0, whoever's 6-0 after 6 games has a legit chance. Because you got to say we could lose one game, and we're still okay. So that's the goal right now, is be 6-0 in my opinion.
Yeah, 6-0. I mean, 10 wins. You're right. It's 2 lost teams. You get to 10 wins, you're going to be in the argument. Now, if you're a 10-win SEC or Big Ten team, you're almost for sure in, unless it's like Rutgers and they don't beat USC, and then they had like no good wins. But that even then they'll be in the conversation. I about guarantee it. If it were me, I probably would put 9 because I think we're the 2 best conferences by far. But it's going to depend. Like, does Kansas State make it undefeated to the Big 12 title game and then play Utah and lose? And Utah had 1 loss, like Oklahoma State had 1 loss, and then they both get in with like 1 loss. It's going to be something like that to keep it out. Because if you compare 10-2 teams, they're going to take almost 100% of the time. You're going to take SEC or Big Ten over everybody else.
And the other thing is ACC. If it becomes like if Clemson runs the table and they're 11-1 and Miami slips up and they're both 11-1 and the loser is 11-2, they played the extra game. Maybe it's Clemson who lost to Georgia. It'd be hard to leave that loser out if they're both 11-1.
I think they're both in. I mean, just off the top of my head, because it means Clemson won 11 in a row. They'll be in the top 8 at worst, probably at that point, maybe top 5. And then Miami's probably in the same spot. Do they fall that far for losing to one another, like the loser? Probably not. But we'll see if we're going to see how bad you get punished for losing conference championship games. And then we're going to see if teams try to not get in them. Be interesting. All right. But that'll do it for this podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us why your team's going to make it and how you're going to get there. But, still hitting 66% on the year. So go ahead and take this to the bank. Not financial advice, but take it to the bank. But for the Dyerwolf, I'm just Matt. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hey, guys. Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right.